Alright, let me tell you this story. This one came straight from a big shot real estate developer who told it to Uncle 3. Now, the thing about this story is that we can't really vouch for whether it's 100% true, because the mogul only heard it secondhand when he was thinking about investing in this particular piece of land. And boy, did that land have some unbelievable tales attached to it. This all took place back in 2016, right in one of those shiny, modern cities in the magnificent Philippines. If you know anything about buying property and settling down in Manila, you know it's diverse. The seriously wealthy folks usually want prime real estate downtown in places like Makati or Alabang. But then you have the other rich crowd who prefer those secluded luxury subdivisions away from all the noise. Manila has been blowing up lately, getting super crowded with people moving there to start careers. This influx also brings in tons of big-time investors looking to cash in on real estate. The whole mess started when a development company spotted some serious potential in a riverfront area. They decided they wanted to build a bunch of high-end villas there, aiming to sell them to those wealthy folks looking for a retreat. But first, they had to deal with the problem of clearing out the people who had lived there for generations. The issue was that those long-time residents absolutely refused to move. They felt like this massive corporation was trying to squeeze them out. And listen, their living situation was rough. We're talking seriously low standards, lacking material comforts, and dealing with severe pollution and sanitation issues. Because they had lived there for so many generations, they used the river for literally everything: eating, bathing, personal hygiene, and dumping trash. It all went straight into the water. So, the corporation sent negotiators down to offer cash and even threatened some families with forced eviction. After a long time, most of the families finally packed up and left, which was a relief for the company. But here's where the story takes a turn. Before they left, those residents gave the corporate staff a dark message. They warned them, saying, "This area has a demon." They claimed that over all the generations they lived there, countless people had died on that river for unknown reasons. Some bodies were found, but many just vanished without a trace. They claimed that almost everyone who lived along that river lost a family member. The residents insisted they were trying to hold out and stay there so that other people wouldn't move in and risk their lives building something. Now, when a big construction company hears a story like that, they usually just roll their eyes and call it ridiculous. Even Uncle 3 thought it sounded kind of silly when he heard it. It smelled like a classic stall tactic. The people were just making up some ghost story, so they didn't have to leave. Or maybe they were trying to leverage the situation to get a much bigger payout before agreeing to go. So, the corporation totally ignored the warnings. They went ahead with their strategies, negotiating, forcing evictions, whatever it took to move the maximum number of households out. After all that effort, only 6 households remained. You could say they were seriously stubborn. They absolutely refused to go, no matter how much money or how much negotiation was thrown at them. Because they were so determined, the corporation decided to back off slightly. They chose not to immediately force them out. Instead, they started construction on a section right next to the remaining 6 homes, planning to persuade the families later. But these 6 families weren't pushovers either. They used every trick they could to try to drive the developers away. Sometimes, they would smear mud on themselves. Other times, they'd bang on the construction workers' doors in the middle of the night to scare them. They even made scary cloth effigies. At first, the workers were spooked, but once they figured out the family's tricks, they just got annoyed or treated it as normal. One evening, some construction guys were hanging out by the river embankment, having a few drinks. One of the workers asked, "Hey, why aren't those folks trying to scare us anymore? I'm actually starting to miss them." The construction foreman just sighed and said, "Man, they can't afford to keep that up forever. Buying those spooky effigies costs money. And smearing mud on yourself at midnight when it's freezing out, that's exhausting. They probably got sick from doing that stuff." Another worker asked the foreman, "So, is there really a ghost, boss?" The foreman scoffed. "If there was a ghost, do you think we'd be sitting here right now? We're almost done building this place. We've been here forever. Have any of you seen a ghost? Has anyone sleeping here actually seen one? No, it's just those 6 families trying to mess with us." All the workers laughed. Encouraged, the foreman pressed on. "Ghost, demon. I've worked here for ages and haven't seen a single one. I dare one to show up." That night, the workers were sleeping in their quarters, but they had the lights on. Not because they were scared of ghosts, but because they worried about thieves, and they had security guards patrolling. Since they were near the river, they cracked open a window to let in the cool breeze. When the workers and the foreman looked out the window, they saw something moving. A large bamboo branch was slowly lowering itself down toward them. Since this was a construction site, the air was thick with dust. And as the branch pointed directly into the room, a cloud of heavy dust blew in. The foreman reached out to push the branch away, but the moment he touched it, he felt something was wrong. Bamboo branches are usually light. There was no reason for this one to be hanging so low, right by the window, and he couldn't lift it. Just as the foreman was about to call his buddies over to help move the heavy branch, he looked up the stalk. And that's when he saw it. He saw a head with long, flowing hair. Just a head. No body, no arms, no legs. This head was bouncing on the tip of the bamboo branch, making the stalk shake violently. Naturally, the foreman let out a blood-curdling scream that woke up every single worker. When everyone rushed over, the bamboo branch was just hanging there, normally. But it was swaying violently, shaking just as the foreman had described, like an unseen head was still bouncing on it. The head itself was gone. The next morning, this incident became the immediate focus of a major corporate meeting. The executives decided right then and there to bring in a famous sorcerer from the Manila area to figure out what was going on. When they hired the sorcerer, the 6 remaining families even came over to listen in. The sorcerer walked around the area and declared that there was ma-ki, demonic energy, and an extremely powerful negative presence. The problem was, he couldn't tell where it was coming from. At first, he figured it had to be the bamboo grove, so he ordered the workers to dig it up. They dug the grove up and found absolutely nothing. That's when the 6 families who were standing nearby yelled out to the sorcerer, "It's not on the bank, it's in the water. What you're looking for is under the water, not on the land." So, the sorcerer took a talisman and dropped it into the river. Everyone watched as the talisman immediately sank straight down, as if someone had yanked it underwater. The construction company decided they would wait until the water level dropped and then use an excavator to dig up the riverbed. Finally, when the water receded, they dug into the river bottom. They found a small wooden chest down there. Once they hauled it ashore and cleaned it off, they saw that it was small but beautifully and intricately carved. The workers were terrified and refused to pry open the box. It was the sorcerer who insisted and ordered the workers to open the chest to see what was inside. When they opened the box, inside was a preserved corpse. The weirdest part? The body wasn't wet at all. This meant the wooden chest hadn't rotted, despite being underwater for a seriously long time. They initially thought it might be the body of a child, but it was the corpse of an adult. The moment he saw this, the sorcerer seemed to understand everything. He quickly ordered them to close the box and frantically told the construction workers to throw the chest back into the river. Now, Uncle 3 thought this was a catastrophic mistake. He said, "You can't just dig someone's grave up without respect or permission and then toss them back in like nothing happened." The original source didn't state an opinion, but Uncle 3 was adamant that this was totally wrong. After that, the guys who had been involved in prying open the chest started falling ill. They were struck by some weird sickness and they began dying off, 1 person every month. The sorcerer that the corporation had hired, he died in the very first week. Things got truly horrific. Even the 6 remaining stubborn families, who said they'd rather die than leave, volunteered to move out. They said they wouldn't stay there, even if they were given more money. The corporation had no choice but to halt the entire construction project for 2 years. The financial losses and damage to their reputation were massive. After 2 years, they finally brought in some Buddhist monks from Tibet. The monks were asked to retrieve the chest again. The monks performed a ceremony, wrapped the coffin in a yellow cloth embroidered with Buddhist symbols, and took it back to their temple for cremation. The corporation executives asked the monks, "Is it settled now? Did you destroy this demon?" The monks responded that they do not destroy any life. "We are only restraining this ghost and praying for it every day so that it may soon achieve enlightenment and pass on," they explained. When the developers questioned why they wouldn't just destroy the spirit, the Tibetan monks explained that the soul was truly pitiful. Then they told the full story. The man whose body was in the chest had lived about 200 years ago. He was incredibly powerful, which is why he was able to kill so many people along that river. He was the village chief before he died from a venomous snake bite. Tragically, his family was completely dysfunctional. During the burial, his children started fighting over an inheritance dispute. His own biological child actually shoved his coffin into the river. Because of that betrayal, he held on to a massive grudge for 200 years. Adding insult to injury, modern people kept dumping trash and sewage right where he died. All that resentment and pollution caused him to turn into a vengeful demon. The Tibetan monks felt genuinely sorry for this 200-year-old soul. They pitied the demon and took him away so that he could listen to their chants and prayers, hoping to ease his heart so he could finally pass on. After all that, the construction project was finished. And that, Uncle 3, is the story the real estate mogul heard when he was checking out whether he should invest in that very piece of land, and how he learned about the 200-year-old river demon